question is, are women or men more likely to wave back when being waved at? We hypothesize that women are more likely to wave back when being waved at because most women engage in the tend and befriend behavior, which means they seek out social groups for defense and protection in threatening situations. As for our literature review, we found an article called Universal and Cultural Specific Properties, which was conducted by Alessandro Durante from University of California in Los Angeles. The goal of his experiment was to find out what constitutes as a greeting exchange. The participants included were a speech community in Western Samoa. He first identified 6 criteria of greetings across languages and speech communities, which included number 1, near boundary occurrence, number 2, establishment of a shared perceptual field, number 3, adjacency pair format, number 4, relative predictability of form and content, number 5, implicit establishment of a spatiotemporal unit of interaction, and number 6, the identification of a distinct being worth recognizing. Durante then used this criteria to examine common Samoan greetings to distinguish the relationship between universal and cultural specific expressions and expressions that appear to be greetings but aren't. And the results were greetings are accomplished if the participant is able to match routine expressions that are correlated with socio-historical circumstances. So essentially, for everybody to grasp that this is a greeting exchange, there would have to be a universal language of greeting exchanges.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris, and I'm going to be talking about the fun stuff here. This is a rundown of how we gathered data for the experiment. We started out by setting up our area of operations outside of Fringer Food Court. Our idea was to investigate what type of reaction we would get by randomly waving at people as they walked past. The independent variable for the experiment, in this case, is the person waving, and we had it split into 2 levels. We had a male waver, which was me, and a female waver, which was Amber. We hypothesized that the female waver would get more responses than the male. Now, I've mentioned responses a couple of times already, so before we continue, I will show you examples of what we counted as a response. The first one is the smile. Next, we have a wave, then a smile and a wave, and finally a head nod or chin jut, which is typically a male response, and we'll cover that a little bit more later. So those are the 4 types of positive response categories we used. The one negative category we had was active avoidance. This is when we got ignored, where the person walked by, looked us dead in the eyes, and then immediately look away or just continue staring at us as they walk by. As the waver themselves, we're sitting on the bench initiating the wave, the one specific responsibility that we had, most importantly, was establishing eye contact. So if we didn't have eye contact before initiating the wave, then there was no way to know if the unwitting participant was really ignoring us or just didn't see us. It was also up to the wavers to maintain a 50-50 participant gender ratio. And the participant group itself consisted of college students, approximately 18 to 24 years of age. We could not determine exact ages because no info sheets or informed consent was gathered due to the nature of the experiment. Established a kind of a uniform. We both wore crimson NMSU t-shirts, a pair of jeans, and a nondescript baseball style hat. Now let's take a look at the results. When we compared response to no response, the results were unimpressive. They were virtually identical. So with a p-value of 0.57, statistically, there was no significance and our hypothesis is unsupported. The results did get interesting, however, when we compared each response category against each other. Here we can see that all of the females responded to the male waver by smiling, whereas not a single male smiled at the male waver. I thought that was pretty interesting. Another result of note was that no female responded with a head nod or a chin jut to either the male or female waver. So for future research, a more interesting experiment could be done on gender-specific responses which could more than likely be tied to evolutionary responses developed for survival. And that pretty much covers our results.
Findings in relation to literature. Alessandro Duranti's Universal and Cultural Specific Properties of Greetings was conducted specifically for verbal greetings, and while it was conducted on a specific set of people, his findings could be considered universal, as his 6 criteria for greetings could be used worldwide. As we conducted our study, we found ourselves using 3 of his main criteria for our nonverbal experiment: near boundary occurrence, establishment of shared perceptual field, and adjacency paired format. This means that we had to make sure that we were in proximity of our participants, that they made eye contact with our experimenters, and that they participated in an A-person initiates, B-person response format of greeting. This means person A, Chris or Amber, would simply wave at person B. The participant would then have a chance to smile, nod, wave, do any combination of these, such as smile and nod, smile and wave, or simply ignore person A. We did not include any verbal responses as part of our study, and therefore could not use any of the other remaining 3 criterias as part of our study.
Okay, now that the experiment is over, we were able to clearly identify some limitations, the first of which being the sample size. We were able to get 60 participants total, which is 30 participants for each level of the independent variable. And while this was enough for us to properly use randomization, we do not feel that it was enough participants to establish response patterns. This problem occurred because during the time that we were gathering data, apparently this was also the time while most students were in class. Our second limitation was the participants themselves. Again, we're on a college campus using the ubiquitous college student as our sample base. So our participants were a very specific demographic, which unfortunately results with our findings being not generalizable to society at large. Also, another issue with the participants was the wearing of sunglasses. Since our experiment was conducted outdoors during the late morning time frame, many of the potential participants avoided our experiment simply because we could not establish eye contact because they were wearing sunglasses. A final limitation had to do with measurement of responses. I discussed earlier the examples of the responses, that being the smile, the wave, the smile and the wave used together, the head nod / chin jut, and avoidance. I also discussed that eye contact had to be made prior to the independent variable initiating the greeting, which was the wave. The limitation here is that there is no way to be sure if the individual we waved at actually saw the wave. In our data, we made the assumption that the wave was seen and the participant consciously ignored us by choosing not to respond. Now, we believe that these limitations could have been greatly reduced if we had selected a better location, hosting a more diverse population that was also a large traffic area. So a few places came to mind. The first would be if we were to conduct this experiment again, a good location would be the farmer's market. Now, there's still the problem we would run into with people wearing sunglasses, but because it is such a high volume area as far as traffic going back and forth, we believe that that would kind of be a wash. The other location we thought about that would pose the least amount of limitations would be Mesilla Valley Mall, especially during a busy Saturday afternoon. This would offer us a very large sample size, very diverse population, and granted, some people do wear sunglasses inside, but for the most part, there would be little to no sunglasses being worn. So if we were to do this experiment again, we learned a little bit from our first one, so we believe our results would come out a little bit better. So that pretty much concludes our podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and this is Team Metamorphosis out.